So I think that's going to be something that we talk about, the word forever, and how much of a hindrance it can be for the average person, because it can be very limiting in the belief. Because especially when you're listening to the people who have all the knowledge, who have all the letters behind their names, you think they have all the answers, but I'm a living testimony that they don't.
Consider this your permission slip. Permission to question the plan, permission to change your mind, permission to choose yourself. This is Unpopular Decisions, where we're talking about what it really takes to say no to convention and yes to yourself. I'm your host, Jameelah Calhoun. Today's conversation is about what happens when trusting yourself means questioning authority. I'm joined by Chris Eversley, a former professional basketball player, NCAA Division I champion, and survivor of a life-threatening injury. He faced a moment none of us prepare for, choosing between medical advice and his own informed instincts. This episode is about self-advocacy in medical care, the courage it takes to question experts, and what elite athletes can teach us all about listening to our bodies, especially when the stakes are high. Let's get into it. Well, hi, Chris. I'm so excited that you're on the pod on Popular Decisions. I just literally remember being so inspired by an event that Overtime Solutions and yourself hosted last fall called The Rewrites. And this show is all about rewriting the script. So thank you for being on.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for supporting back in the fall when I was essentially in a familiar stage, just trying something different, and got tired of the norm that's out there on the market for experiences for people going through change. So just wanted to use my experience to relate to people. And now we are here on Unpopular Decisions.
Yeah, exactly. Full circle moment. So before we go all into the details, I'd love for you to just introduce yourself to the audience and tell us what unpopular decision you made.
Hi, I'm Chris Eversley, and my unpopular decision was defying medical odds when doctors said that I was physically compromised forever.
Wow. Well, just hearing those words from doctors, I'm sure was a shock in and of itself. But, you know, who pushed back the hardest when you were saying, I gotta go against this medical diagnosis or this medical advice.
Yeah, it was a couple of doctors early on. They really told me that I hadn't made enough progress in the amount of time in my recovery. So, just from a quick biomechanical lesson for the listeners, if you don't move certain parts of your body, or if certain motor plates don't get electricity from the nerves, they shut down forever. So, I think that's going to be something that we talk about, the word forever, and how much of a hindrance it can be for the average person, because it can be very limiting in the belief. Because especially when you're listening to the people who have all the knowledge, who have all the letters behind their names, you think they have all the answers, but I'm a living testimony that they don't.
Wow. I mean, also to your point, the word forever and the connection between kind of your mental state and your physical health, your physical body is so powerful. What was that like for you? Like in terms of really protecting your emotional health while you were also trying to recover physically?
Yeah, I'd say that's probably something that was the most damning early on, because you're essentially forced into a lifestyle that you are not even remotely familiar with. I'm used to being able to just get up and go. Well, left for college at 17, and then left the country when I was 22 when I graduated to go play overseas for 5 years. So I had just been accustomed to living on my own sort of energy. And when all of that is comes to not even a grinding halt, it's just like running into a wall, where you're going from literally driving to a game, playing basketball with your friends, and 3 hours later, you're on a hospital table just talking about potential amputations, having nurses help you to use the bathroom. It was a complete 180 from anything that I'd ever experienced. And I mean, we could go levels on that, but just there was a bit of toxic masculinity in there for me too, where there was a lesson to be learned about how we as men don't do a good enough job of just asking for help, but also receiving help. And whether that's on the mental health front, whether that's on the physical health front, emotional, we need to do a better job of just being open to the possibility that we need other people and we need to stop being so damn stubborn.
Look, I'm ready for to the sermon to come out a little later. Like I feel it brewing. So, because that is so important. What you're touching on there. Well, I guess you mentioned like this was kind of all of a sudden. I'm sure the audience is like, well, what happened? And the curiosity is peaked. Could you talk about just that moment of being injured, what was going on, for you? What kind of injury was it? And then kind of that initial moment in the hospital that you had to get through.
Of course. Yeah. So I was playing basketball recreationally over the last few years. I retired from professional ball in 2019, and I've been playing for cardio. I love basketball because it's mindless cardio. You can get out there, run around for an hour, and burn 1,000 calories. So I had been on this routine, playing in a couple men's leagues a week, and I got a call from one of my friends asking to come play the night before I was supposed to go out to New York for my 33rd birthday last year, 2 years ago. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, the only thing I have planned in New York is literally just I have a Peloton workout at the studio. But other than that, good food, good drink, no sleep, the usual New York shenanigans,
I
right?
love it. Love it.
And so you know what? I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and get this last sweat in. So I go over there. I'm playing the game. Took all the preliminary precautions. Again, I'm in my 30s. I stretch. I'm making sure everything's good, and pretty much everything's just going to plan. And I was in a particular play where it was just non-contact, where I was dribbling full speed, and I planted the wrong way. Again, nobody really around. Planted the wrong way, and my knee hyperextended, which is always, it's pretty much ACL is guaranteed once the knee hyperextends. But I've been around teammates who've torn their ACLs in practice, and you kind of piece together what it could feel like. But the one thing nobody ever mentioned was complete leg numbness. So I'm like, okay, well, this isn't normal from what I at least conceptually understand about these types of injuries. So I get to the sidelines. I'm still kind of like hobbling on it. I can't really put any weight on the leg because I can't feel it. So pretty much straight to the ER. Within 30 minutes, I have doctors in there saying, okay, well, we need to take a Doppler. We need to see where the pulse is. We need to do a CT scan. So I'm getting shipped all around the hospital to all these different departments. And I come back and there's a vascular surgeon waiting for me. And I'm like, well, I mean, vascular means pretty serious things, like you never want to hear from the vascular doctors or the neurological doctors. And somehow I found myself staring across from one of them. So he's like, well, Chris, you've blocked the main artery in your leg. And if we don't make a decision soon based on how these next few tests go, you could potentially lose the entire leg. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, it was a routine play. I've made this same exact move millions of times in my life, and that's not an understatement. From literally just running, pivoting, something I've done again countless times. And he's like, I understand that, but unfortunately, this is super serious, and you're super unlucky because this is something that we see in horrific car crashes where somebody T-bones you or you run into the back of somebody and then the knee hyperextends. He's like, I've never seen this from such simple of a situation of our injury mechanism. So I'm like, okay, well, we got to do what we got to do. And now was that first moment where I'm like, damn, all right, I might really be in trouble. And again, for somebody who's been used to just going, 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 even the simplest things like just getting up out of bed and doing all these uh, essential everyday activities could potentially be compromised here. So they put me upstairs in a room. He comes in around 4:30 the next morning. He's like, I've been on the phone all night. I've been reading my medical journals, and something's telling me that we gotta go into surgery. We have to go. I need you in that first slot. Because if anybody else comes in here with gunshot wounds or stuff like that, like they have to go first. But there's nobody in that first slot for a reason. So we're going in. So I go into surgery and wake up 10 hours later because it ended up being a lot more serious than they thought. The first bypass that they tried to do failed. So then I'm just sitting there kind of just leaking out on the table. And that was where it became a little bit more serious. and not limb threatening, but life threatening. Because once you start having these long blockages, again, it's a matter of seconds before it stops blood to the heart and you're in dire trouble. So luckily, I'll spare a lot of the details, but that is essentially the surgery that I had to end up having. And injury wise, what I ended up doing was tearing my ACL, obviously, as we knew, tearing my LCL, tearing my PCL, tearing pretty much the entire outside of my knee up. I tore my hamstring off of my bone, and then I blocked the artery that they had replaced. And but more importantly, and most damningly, even 18 months later, is I had stretched the peroneal nerve, which is responsible for raising your foot. So I have foot drop now where I can't raise my foot. And I had a nerve transfer last year to potentially help me kind of regain that function. But that's all the damage that was done. And that is why I'm officially the 7-digit man. So over $1 million in surgeries at this point.
Oh, oh my word. Like one, I'm just thinking about the pain. I mean, you mentioned probably there was the numbness in your leg, but that list of injuries just sounds absolutely catastrophically painful. So incredibly, sad that you had to go through that,
Right.
but also a testament to your toughness. And I'm sure there's a lot about toughness and kind of deference to authority that you kind of always had to deal with as an athlete. But how was this maybe different than the prior times where you had to fight through something, fight through pain, and the prior times where you had to maybe defer to your coach or your team doctor?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think to put it very simply, the usual deviations I was accustomed to was the coach says, run this play. I see something different on the floor, so I go do something else. No, but not, that's not life or death. That might get me benched. That might get me taken out the game, whatever it is. In this case, it's life or death because, if I don't have certain surgeries or if I don't listen to the right people, then I could potentially end up losing a leg. I could potentially, I mean, even worse, right? Considering the situation. So I think one of the things that stood out for me with this was that submission of control that I was used to having, especially in a space at the time that I was extremely unfamiliar with. I can deviate from a coach's play because I know basketball. I played for decades. I can't deviate away from medicine because I didn't understand the intricacies of my injury or the ecosystem that I was going to be living in just yet. So, very early on, I was like, you know what? I don't know enough about all of this. So, let me just follow the people with the licenses.
Yeah, well, so many conversations we've had on this show is about, empowering yourself with information, and definitely those immediate moments it's not available to you, but absolutely sounds like eventually you did go and find the information to empower yourself down the line. But maybe before we circle back to that, because I think that's going to be an important theme to come back to. We always love to play a little game on our show called Would You Rather. And this is another way for us to get to know your decision making, get to know you. And these are not life or death. So it should
Okay.
be much easier.
Love a good low stakes situation.
Hopefully. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. So, number one, would you rather go to physical therapy or the dentist?
Physical therapy. Do
Okay.
I give context or is it just
Yes,
rapid fire style?
please.
Okay.
Let's do
Physical
it.
physical therapy because that means I'm usually improving at something. The dentist wants to just
Mm.
drill in your mouth and say you don't have any cavities, which 2 years running, I haven't had any. Shout out to all my clean teeth
Oh,
people out there.
love that.
But, but physical therapy usually means I'm improving in some way that's gonna drastically change my quality of life. So I think that's what I love the most about PT is this is gonna suck, but I'm gonna be better because of it. The dentist is
Yeah.
here. Let me just drill on some teeth and tell you you're okay.
It's funny because I also think people who haven't been to physical therapy don't realize how painful physical therapy is. Like the dentist, everyone's like, "Oh, it's big and scary," but
Mhm.
physical therapy, like, whew, like it can really get you. So
Yes.
I'm surprised you chose that one,
It's a
but I
it's a
like your
love-hate
reasoning.
relationship. mean, of course, it's a love-hate
Yeah.
relationship. I've come to love the pain at this point, so
I love well, this is related to the next one, so perfect tee up. Would you rather play through pain for the championship on the line
mm.
or sit out knowing that Twitter will call you soft?
Oh, I'm in the game. I'm in the game. I'm in the game knowing all the possibilities. I mean, we've seen two recent examples of this in the NBA with Tyrese Halliburton. You know, him knowing that I have a calf strain and knowing that a potential Achilles injury is on the table, and it happens. Same thing with Kevin Durant. Same thing with
Yep.
Jason Tatum. So those are all. You don't become who you want to become without taking those calculated risks. So,
Ooh.
like Drake said, Twitter fingers, nah.
I love it. Okay, last one. Would you rather be labeled difficult or quietly regret not speaking up?
Difficult, 100%. I don't believe that any change that's impactful and worth it ever comes from going along and getting along. I think that
Mm,
it's a diversity of thought equals diversity of process equals diversity of revenue. So if I am the difficult one because my thought process is diverse, then so be it. I guarantee you where we end up at the end of this road is going to be a lot further along as if I was the church mouse in the corner just hanging out with Stuart Little.
right. Right. No, I love it. And exactly what this platform is all about. All right. So let's get back to you kind of getting ready to really make some big decisions. So, tell us you're out of the hospital now. So thankfully you had that very long surgery. They found more complications, but sounds like broadly that was successful. But that's just the beginning of your recovery journey in so many ways. What was like the next thing you did when you got home from that, or sorry, after you finished that surgery, when you were trying to make sense of what was happening? Who did you connect with? What did you turn to really start to process like, okay, this is what the next few months is going to look like, and here's what I need to do?
Well, the interesting thing about it is when I woke up from that surgery, I actually spent the next 5 weeks still in the hospital. So I used those very quiet nights of despair to educate myself, really learning the ins and outs of every single discipline that I was going to encounter in this surgery or in this recovery process. So, neurology, I'm deep in there. Orthopedics, I'm deep in there. Plastics, I'm deep in there. Vascular, I'm deep in there. So, just trying to get a microcosm of what medical school could teach these professionals. So when they come into the room, we can have advanced level conversations. Because the thing about it is, when they realize that you're as invested in this as they are, y'all can take recovery to a new level because they're not afraid to push. They're like, no, this man is willing to educate himself. This man's willing to push his body through all hell to recover. So I also got to come on my A game every time I come into this room. So you touched on it a little bit earlier, but I don't want to just gloss over the impact and the power of self-education, especially when it comes to the medical system, because as we'll talk about soon, that is the thing that can save you from a lot of pain, and it'll quite honestly change your life's trajectory.
Yeah, well, let's start going there because, just like you said, a big aspect is, you want to be a partner in your medical care versus a subject, right? Like when you don't have as much information or education on the particulars of your body and the specialty you're maybe encountering, you can kind of feel like, hey, I'm the subordinate here. I need to listen to the boss. But the reality is it's your body. And so you ultimately want them to be a thought partner with you. So yeah, take us a little bit ahead on the journey when you started to really kind of maybe push back or talk with your doctors about different options and how you basically guided your recovery to something that was right for you.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest pivot in the entire situation was at about well, I guess it was like 5 months. I had had enough education to where I could pair it with my body. If there's one thing I want people to take away from this is going to be you're the one driving the car. Everybody else is just along for the ride. So it's your car, it's your gas. But the difference is, and I've mentioned this in my newsletter before, there's a difference in who's co piloting. You're going to have some doctors that are the MapQuest doctors. The ones that got the 2002 sheet of paper and you got to flip it and go to the next page. Everything's outdated. But then you also have potentially a CarPlay doctor, updated interface. Oh, there's a blockage ahead. Let's go this way. Those are the type of people you want in your corner. You want the doctors that are innovators. You want the doctors that are forward thinking, the ones that are reactionary instead of being like, oh, I have to go this way. And no matter what, this is what's going on. So my first two doctors were those just kind of reactionary ones. And it's just like, okay, well, you're saying my knee is stuck at 55 degrees, which is clearly very short of the normal 140 degrees that it normally is. So I don't know if I agree with the math that you're thinking about because you're afraid to do this surgery that some other surgeon I will later find wants to do and it has no issue on actually doing it. So this first doctor, they were scared to do this manipulation under anesthesia, which they go in, they crack your knee, get you more range of motion. So his answer was, you know what? Unfortunately, you're stuck like this. You're going to walk with the limp forever. Your knee's not going to be able to bend past 55 degrees. You're not going to be able to jog. You're not going to be able to play basketball. You're not going to be able to get on a bike, which requires 110 degrees. So I'm thinking, I walk out of there pissed because the athlete in me is it's no longer I need to listen to the people with the medical licenses. It's now I've equipped myself with enough knowledge and I've also paired it with my stubborn athlete mentality to think, no, 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 no. You are definitely wrong. So I'm gonna guess what? I'm gonna go next door and knock on somebody else's door. I go to a podiatrist. Podiatry wants to give me Botox in my calf. So essentially, they want to counteract the paralysis on the front on my shin with paralysis in my calf. So then I have a completely paralyzed leg. Again, something about this just doesn't sound right. Guess what? I'm going to door number three. So, that stick to itness where if I hadn't educated myself, I would have just thought like, oh wow, well, they're right. Because they say it in a way that makes so much sense because they have the knowledge, they have the consensus. They can sit you down in a room, they can give you the reports, they can show you the data. But at the end of the day, none of those cases that they bring in are you. So that's why I started myself. I'm like, no, 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 no. I have enough education, but more importantly, I have this mentality of the same way I go through life is the same way I play basketball. If I miss a shot, I'm going to get the rebound. If I miss the rebound, I'm gonna go put it back up and I'm just not going to stop. And Marshawn Lynch has this famous quote where he's just like over and over and over and over. And he says like 16 times about like running through people as a running back. And that's my mentality with life now is it's just I pivot when I have to, but I'm not going to stop going because it's empowered me to get this far. But more importantly, it's left a trail of breadcrumbs that I can use to help other people in in my similar situation.
Right, right. Eh, It's interesting though, because I feel like that over and over mentality, like a lot of times people tell you in order to really come to peace about things that, acceptance is the key of towards that. And yet you were in a situation where you refused to accept that this is just going to be your life going forward. Were there people in your life around you that were saying like, "Look, it's time to just accept this and kind of make peace with this versus continue the fight?" Like, was that ever part either within yourself or with others that you felt was intention?
Outside of the doctors, and then my dad, just because he's just a stereotypical black dude that doesn't want to go to the doctor. But like outside of those, like they always told me, or well, my parents in particular, they were very big on the if you want to do something, put your mind to it and just get after it. So I didn't get much of that from them because again, like this is unfamiliar territory to them too. They're hearing the same information that I'm hearing, and again, they're not me. They're obviously older, so the mindset can be a little different to where I'm still young enough to where I want to go, go, go. Like I thought about it like this every day, very simply. I want my life back. And if I can't get my life back, I want a better version of my life back, even though it may look different. So if you want to look at acceptance that way, it was more of a grieving of the old Chris Eversley 1.0. And how can I make this 2.0 exponentially better? Because this one's going to be filled with, I don't know, more appreciation, more gratitude, all the things that come from this process. Because I mean, it's funny. I was at PT yesterday, and for the past couple of days, they've been having strikes at the hospital because the nurses aren't getting paid enough money. A couple of years ago, I would have just drove by, honked my horn a couple of times, and be like, yeah, yeah, go nurses. But now I've been in those rooms with those nurses 24 hours a day, and I realize how much work they do, and it is severely underappreciated. So when nurses are like, "We want more money," I'm like, "Hell yeah, y'all need more money." Teachers, same thing. People that are on the front lines of society that are saving lives or empowering tomorrow's leaders need to be receiving top dollar because they're responsible for keeping people healthy and whatever tomorrow looks like from a societal standpoint.
Well, I love how you've been able to like actually find purpose and meaning through the experience. But you did eventually kind of meet with a doctor that had that fighter mindset, the innovator mindset that connected for you. Yeah, tell us about what was that kind of meeting like? How did you find them? And then ultimately, what's the kind of innovative path that you guys decided to go down versus what the original doctors were recommending?
Yeah, they were so after I left those 2 doctors, I thought to myself, "You know what? I have to get outside of my provider's walls." So I went to Westwood here in LA, and there's a regenerative doc there. He's not invasive. So I was like, "Let me try something different. Let me just get a different lane." I go in there, he says, "This is one of the craziest things I've ever seen. We personally can't help you, but I know someone who can." So then he refers my case to one of his friends who's a doctor for a sports team here in Los Angeles. And that doctor says, "You need to go find this doctor in this hospital specifically. Don't go to anybody else." Luckily, that doctor was in my network. So I started blowing that man's phone up. I'm like, "Yo, I need to talk to you ASAP. I need to talk to you ASAP." The funny thing about it was when I went in to meet with him, his office is right across the hall, the same hallway as the doctor who told me I was stuck at 55 degrees. So I was thinking to myself, this is irony because here's a doctor that said I was stuck like this. And now I'm literally right next door and I'm having somebody who's just as crazy as I am and think, no, we need to fix this. So I've been hearing about this doctor that they referred me to. So I look him up. Obviously, I'm blowing up his phone. I get the meeting. I go in there and I'm explaining to him, this is what happened. This is how long it's been. He's like, look, you're not going to believe me, but I've dealt with a couple of these cases before. And it's going to take us some time, but we're going to get you back and better. So I'm like, this is what I needed. I needed somebody just to say that I'm with you. Not, oh man, like this sucks. No, no, no. Strap in for a wild ride because you and I are going to be friends for a long time. It's basically verbatim what he said. So that just reignited that fire because I knew I wasn't alone. And again, my parents and my friends, they're there for you on an emotional level, but they're not you. So this is to be seen and to be validated by somebody and just to think, okay, here's somebody who's also they understand my desperation to repair myself and they're the one that's going to say, "You know what? I see myself in this person, so let's get after it." So literally from that meeting, we are like, "Look, I'm Shaq, you Kobe, bring us home." So I just think that at the end of the day, you just need somebody to see you. And again, whether that's in the medical
Mhm.
field, whether that's at work, whether that's in your relationship, whatever it is, people just want to be seen, heard, and supported. So if you can light the pilot on one of those, the fire can get rolling. So once I finally found that spark, I'm like, "Oh no, okay, like this is good to go." And there's an old quote from John Paul Mitchell, and he was giving a talk at Stanford in 2007, and he was talking about selling his hair product, talking about going door to door. You just got to be excited on door 103 as were on door number one, because you're not looking for 103 yeses. You're looking for one yes. And that one yes changes everything. So that was my mentality. I'm gonna go knock on door after door after door until I find someone who wants to buy stock in injured Chris Eversley Incorporated.
Oh man, that is such a great kind of visual and analogy, kind of going door to door uh, as a salesman. Um, yeah, so it's great that you found and connected with the right person who did give you hope. What was the moment where you were like, okay, I am actually gonna make it? Like after you connected with this person and you're starting to do, maybe it's the first surgery, second surgery, like what was the moment where you were like, okay, I've made the right choice and I think I see the light at the end of the tunnel?
It was with when I met this doctor, the one that's been doing my
Wow,
recent
at
stuff.
the
It was
beginning.
after it was the first meeting. It was as simple as it's gonna take us a while, but we will get there. And as someone who's clinging to desperation, that's all you can want is to hear from somebody who knows the finish line is miles away. But hey, you do a three-leg race to get there. So I'm not alone. You just strap up the legs and y'all go. You're gonna stumble, you're gonna fall, but you're gonna get there eventually. So I knew right from then he laid out the plan. He's like, we're gonna do this surgery first, then I'm gonna give you some downtime. And based on how your recovery is going, then we're gonna go in and do the big surgery. And I'm like, okay, well, I got a lot of stuff to fix. He's like, well, I mean, look, I'm here to fix it. There isn't anything you won't have to worry about. We're just going to see how your body looks when surgery day comes. We do the MRIs, we get all the information we need. And once we have all the information, we make an educated decision based on what we need to fix. So from day one, I knew the plan. And it should reiterate that when people are going into these offices, the reason why that percentage is so stark in contrast with the first and the second doctor is because doctors have different approaches. You have some doctors who are just going to say, all right, well, I've seen this case before, so you're just like that person. This is what I saw. You're going to have another doctor that says, okay, let's get some secondary scans. You know what? Here, go talk to this other regenerative doc who's non invasive to get a holistic approach and let's just compare notes. So it's a difference in methodology, right? So some doctors are going to be completely different. Some doctors are team players. Others have a God complex. So if you're in that first meeting, again, you use your intuition to say, does this doctor work well with others? Would they want to work well with others? Or do they have the God complex that most doctors unfortunately have? And if you find yourself on the fence about it, get a second opinion and knock on doors until you find somebody that's like, okay, I hear you, and here's everything. And at the end of the day, if everything points to this the situation, then that might be time to make peace with it. But going off the first doctor, no, that's not the wave anymore. It's too much medicine, too many advances. I mean, it's to the point now where I'm teaching my doctors about new medicines that are being made. So again, be with doctors who are innovative, collaborative, and they want to be in your car with everything going in the right direction.
Yeah. Also, the pace of innovation is just so much faster, even in medicine right now. So it makes sense that at times they're not going to be as aware of every new thing that's right on the horizon. You've mentioned your parents a few times, who have been a huge support throughout this journey. But it struck me how much this experience of interacting with medical professionals can be really informed by your identities or how you grew up thinking about medical care, about authority. So I was just curious about how did that kind of play a role in maybe not your approach, but also how people around you maybe thought about what you were doing.
It's it's different for both my parents. My mom goes to the doctor, gets her physicals, all that stuff. She's on top of it. My dad, he does not go to the doctor. He doesn't want to go to the doctor. And he has his reasons, which, hey, look, I get it. You have your past, you have your trauma, your generational situation. So I'm in no way trying to encroach on that. I was always the person that when something's wrong, I'm at the doctor. Especially when before I was 26, I can go to the doctor anytime I want. I'm on my mom's insurance, right? Prime example about this, and I haven't shared this with you yet because I was saving it for today. I was having chest pain last December. I went to the doctor again because I'm just always in the doctor at this point. I go to the doctor and they do a chest scan. X-ray comes back fine. However, they send me to cardiology just to make sure everything's cool. The cardiologist calls me the next day and says, are you aware that you have an enlarged aorta? I'm like, no, what? And she was like, yeah, this is something we don't know if it's congenital. We don't know if it's because of the injury or whatever it is. And I'm like, okay, well, what's the problem? And she's like, well, it's not a problem, but we're going to have to scan it every year for the rest of your life to make sure it's not growing in diameter. But again, I went because my chest was hurt. I was having trouble breathing. I went in there for it ended up being pleuritis, which is the inflammation of your lung lining, which is the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my life, far worse than the injury. If you have pleuritis, it is the worst thing because it hurts to breathe. But I went in for something completely different. But just because I got a scan, they were able to say, oh, wow, here we caught something that could have potentially been hazardous, like fatal, 5 or 6 years in the future. But now we know by accident.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, again, just like you said, really taking into account and taking advantage of the resources that we do have to get ahead of things. So glad they caught that. And there's so many stories like that for people who were able to prevent something from getting much worse by getting the care that they need. You also mentioned earlier that this journey required you to maybe humble yourself a little bit. That toxic masculinity may have been coming out, as you're experiencing an injury that limited you in certain ways. Tell me about that experience. I think, again, even the experience of your dad saying he doesn't like to go to a doctor, there's a lot of masculinity and I take care of myself. I don't need that extra help. So I'd love to hear how this experience maybe changed some perspective for you.
Yeah, I think the toxic masculinity officially went out the window when I was in the hospital and I had to rely on the female nurses to help me use the bathroom. And again, because I can't wipe, I can't, what I mean? Like it's a bunch of stuff I just can't do. So I was like, you know what? This has to be the ego death of that toxic masculinity. So from that point on, I was just straight up, with all my friends, especially the guys, I'm like, look, we got to be better at going to the doctor. I'm not going to stop saying that. I'm going to look directly into the camera, take your ass to the doctor for your physicals. But more importantly, like we don't know it all. And there's no way that we could ever potentially know it all. So, that masculinity, that toxic masculinity, it has to go because it will do you more harm in the long run because you think like, oh, I'm okay. I'm gonna just walk it off. Or I'm gonna sleep it off. Go get your scans, go get your physicals. Because at the end of the day, toxic masculinity can drive you to a grave if you think that you are better than biology. If you think your stubbornness is stronger than biology, you got a rude awakening coming. So take it from somebody. I call it advice from the future. It's this new series I'm about to kick off. Somebody who's been
Ooh.
there, just a little tidbit. From somebody who's been there, go to the doctor, do your physicals, go to the dentist, as we mentioned before. Do not let the pride be the fall. And that's something that goes back, centuries.
Well, love teach them. So we're
Yes.
very excited for your series that's coming out. Earlier you touched on though this idea of ego death, and I'm sure for you this is also intersecting with your identity, right? Like
Mhm.
you were an athlete and now potentially, even with the recovery that, has been going very well for you, there's still a different life that you are living now, post athletic career. How has that identity transition been for you? And I think that was also part of what inspired the event, the rewrite.
Yeah, I think it just reignited my passion for helping people. I've always loved helping people, and I have been so accustomed to being in a team environment. I've been so accustomed to being the team captain, just the guy in general. So this was a very isolating experience. And there's video evidence of this. I had a blog when they actually started recording in the hospital, where the first couple episodes, I'm in the hospital looking crazy because I hadn't had a haircut, beard looking wild. And I just thought to myself, I'm like, I know how rare this is. Like this chance injury is a 1 in 7 or 8 billion. I'm literally, and I've had multiple doctors confirm that this is something that you see maybe once in a lifetime, especially considering like the recovery afterwards and everything I'm still dealing with now. But it reignited the fact that I'm not going to be the last person in this position. And even if somebody's going through something that's far less dangerous or of more of a hazard, I want to teach them that this is how dark it can get, but this is how you make it through. So, through those first few vlogs, just kind of talking in the moment, this is how I'm feeling, just being very vulnerable. So you can literally see the toxic masculinity just leaving. It's just out the window like a text bubble. And just being real. And the thing about it is, I was able to start a podcast with another friend of mine he was a gymnast who had back problems. It's called the Chronic Couch. and we would just talk about insurance, we would talk about pain management, we talk about recovery. And the amount of people that reached out to us via comments and DMs, just looking for the same hope that I was looking for when I found my doctor. And the fact that I'm like, I can help you. It's the most liberating feeling that I think really frees me up, but it also gives me the fuel to keep going. Because the further I go down my road, the longer I can throw the road back and say, "All right, come on, like I got you. Like, I'm with you on this three-legged race, like my doctor has been for me." So just I think that's the most important thing that I've taken away from all this is just it's reignited my passion to help people. And just as stubborn as I was in my own recovery and getting back to where I am now and where I will go, I'm just as stubborn in creating breadcrumbs for people to be able to find me so I can help them too.
I love that. I literally got goosebumps just the idea of like turning this into, a way for you to have purpose and continue to touch lives in a completely different way than maybe you did as an athlete. So, I love that. I you know, looking ahead now, now you have really leaned into leveraging your experience both as an athlete and through this particular journey to really think about developing, the series you're doing. You're also the founder of Overtime Solutions. How has this kind of changed your philosophy of leadership, and how are you kind of taking this experience into something that's not just about managing medical care, but just how you live your life more generally?
That's a great question. And it's made a world of a difference. I think the most important thing that I've really been able to tap into is why I was able to make it through all of this. And the answer is very simple. It's the athlete mentality. I was not born in the best neighborhoods. I used basketball as an escape. My parents had me gone every weekend to avoid gang violence and all that stuff in my neighborhood growing up. So I just naturally found one thing that my parents really kind of let me get into, and they just let me chase my wildest dreams. They made sure I was, at all the right tournaments, all that stuff. So I had just been so obsessed with getting better at this particular thing, and I was able to chase it to the highest level. Now, the same thing is true with my work. And I realized that a lot of people love the sports mentality or what I like to call the performance mindset. We're enamored with the athlete mentality. That is the reason why people love the World Cup. It is the reason why people love the Olympics. Sports is one of the last few unifying pillars that we have in society. But you look at it from what people really love about it, and it's the fact that these people are just humans. Like, sure, you may have quick twitch muscles or whatever it is, but the mentality can be the same. I'm gonna attack this thing with everything that I have, and I'm gonna chase this goal. And that's just it. There's no if and buts about it. I put the blinders on, I'm gonna go. So what I do now is I channel that mentality from some of the world's greatest examples and I bring it into either the workplace or the cohort curriculum that I'm starting up very soon on Maven. I want people to understand that, yes, this person may be 6'10 with a 38-inch vertical, but at the end of the day, we all have this. But you think this person's so far gone and they're all these different things where we're a lot closer here than you think, but they've just chosen to go after something with all that they have. So a very prime example right now is Lindsey Vaughn. Lindsey Vaughn tore her ACL a couple of days ago. She said, you know what? It's swollen. I'm still going to compete. The average person is like, oh my God, like, everybody's going crazy. But that's a conscious decision that I want to tell people no, it's your body and your mind are a lot stronger than you think. And you're a lot closer to these people that you idolize more than you think. So now with my workshops, everything's just based on performance mindset. And I use my background as a professional athlete just to draw from my experiences, but also make it relevant to today. Again, bringing up the Lindsey Vaughn example, bringing up the Tyrese Halliburton situation. People really enjoy that bridge. So all I do is I built it and I'm just sending everything across so you feel closer to them in a way more empowered in yourself, whether it's advocating for that new role or starting a company, starting a new venture. You have the possibility and you have the capability to do it. But I'm the person that's going to be in your corner saying, again, I'm running this three-legged race with you. Let's get it. No excuses.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, let me not try and do a cartwheel right now, trying to be like Simone Biles. Like, I don't think that'll work out for me, but I think you're absolutely what you're talking about, the mentality. And in corporate, we use all of these terminologies that come from sports. They're like, oh, we're hiring at, an all around athlete, or like all these, who's next on deck? Like everything's a sports metaphor. So it makes sense that there's such a connection between those two spaces. One of the pieces though that you talk about with this mentality is that, go forward kind of aspect. But in your experience and what you went through, what's kind of that line you find between, self advocacy being healthy and like that stubbornness being healthy versus reckless? Like, how do you think about, because we also know some athletes who took some pretty big risks and it ended up being pretty tough for them. What do you think about that line between kind of being confident versus reckless?
You are the CEO of your own body. You are the CEO of your own mind. Everybody else is an employee. They give you feedback. You chart the vision. You know where you want to go. You know how your body feels and wakes up in the morning. Prime example, going back to sports here, Simone Biles withdraws from the Olympics because of mental health issues. Everybody's upset. Oh no, why would you do that? Simone Biles is 4'9" and flips through the air at countless miles per hour. And any half inch off, she breaks her neck. She knows her body. She doesn't have to listen to the outside noise, right? So you at this point, again, wherever you are in your life journey, I mean, if you're past 15 years old, you have a pretty good indicator of what your body is. So it's the difference. If we talk about it from a PT standpoint, there's a difference between pain, like the ouch pain, and the good pain. Me getting my knee bends across the table because I need to restore range of motion is good pain. Me doing a deep squat and feeling a pop is bad pain. But I know my body. So I know as I'm approaching that limit, okay, Chris, time to back off. If I'm at PT, no, Chris, like today we really got to get after it. Okay, but again, I know that this is the good pain. It comes with a heightened sense of self-awareness. And if you're not super aware of your body, I encourage mindful things, yoga, Pilates, uh, all those things that get you more in touch with your body, where your body is in space, proprioceptive exercises, the things that make your body feel like it's moving as one cohesive system, as opposed to right hand, left hand, not knowing what each other's doing. Your body needs to flow and it needs to feel as one. So I make sure that people know that. And I try to help people with breathing exercises, whatever it is that helps you feel more in control. Because again, at the end of the day, all the outside stuff is opinions. Only you know what you're capable of. And your body will know. It'll tell you, this is feeling good. This is for a good thing. No, 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 no. Back off, back off. That's not the right thing to do today. So people just need to listen twice as much as they speak.
Mm, I love that. Also, just the idea that we should be doing a lot more to be mindful and tune in. Maybe you've given so many you dropped so many bars throughout this, so I don't even know if I need to ask this question. But if there is somebody out there who is maybe facing a difficult medical situation or diagnosis, what's maybe one thing that you would recommend for them as they're navigating that experience mentally, emotionally, et cetera?
All those journals, all the statistics, they're not you. That's the most important thing I can tell you. You have to be a little crazy to recover in a way that may seem impossible to them. And that's okay. I'm here to tell you, you're not crazy. You're not, at least in like the stereotypical sense from like the 90s and stuff like that. But no, you're not crazy. When you hear no, get a second opinion. If you're still unsure about a second opinion, get a third if you have the resources to be able to. Just don't let that first door, even though it's locked, be the end of your story. Find another door to walk through. Eventually, you're going to find somebody who's willing to work with you, or at least gives you enough evidence to support that this may be the end of the road. But you're not crazy. And all of those journals and statistics and consensus, do not let them be you because, again, none of those studies include you. I would have been a statistic if I would have just said, all right, my knee is stuck at 55 degrees. Instead, I was a statistic on a panel in Dubai 2 weeks ago as an extreme medical outlier that my surgeon presented at a conference. You decide your fate. They don't.
I love it. Well,
Mhm.
I was going to ask, how are things now? So you said 55. Like, where are you now? I don't know if it's the degrees that you're tracking, but yeah, tell us how things have turned out.
Things have turned out great. I am back in restoring the range of motion. When I came out of surgery, I was obviously a little bit stiff, but I had gone just for to close a loop on that entire range of motion thing. I had gone from 55, where they said I was stuck, all the way up until 132, which is 8 degrees short of normal and obviously astronomically further than anybody thought, except my doctor who was along the ride. And now with the post op, I'm basically restoring that range of motion. So I'm at around 110 now. So I've got about 20, 25 more to go. But again, things that are possible because I found the right person that was in my corner. And I mean, they went in, he repaired pretty much everything, repaired my ACL, repaired my LCL, repaired my hamstring with some really innovative stuff. And it just goes to show that a diagnosis is not as damning as it would have been 15 or 20 years ago. My nerve transfer was not possible 15 years ago, but due to modern medicine, I have a chance to lift my foot again in the near future. Whereas before it was we have to go on, we have to do a tendon transfer, and that compromises another major muscle group. So again, all the perks more of going to the doctor and looking for the types of things that are out there. Let me be a living case that there's innovative medicine out there that will make a huge difference. But you have to educate yourself on it because again, the doctors, they have a lot of other stuff going on. They're not going to know what the latest technology is, but there's things out there that could potentially help you that you have to go find and then bring them the journals and the data to say, we need to look into this because I've done that at this point 4 or 5 times and those surgeries have happened because I advocated for myself through education and self-education.
Yeah. Well, being a partner, a thought partner, it
Yes.
means they're bringing something to the table, you're bringing something to the table as well. Well, this is an amazing, inspirational story overall, Chris. So glad that you've been with us. But I guess as our closing question, since the show
Mhm.
is all about building courage to live your truth, what would you like to say to the haters, the people who judged your choice to move in a different direction without understanding the reality behind it.
Making the unpopular decision is how you chart the path that very few people have ever even tried. And whether that's in business, whether that's in relationships, you have to know that you're going to have to reinvent yourself, and you should because you're going to continue to grow. But growth is uncomfortable. If you want to be like everybody else, make the popular decision. That road has plenty of footsteps. But if you truly want to be a visionary, if you truly want to be revolutionary for yourself, for your profession, for your family, you're going to have to make unpopular decision after unpopular decision because that is what trailblazes the new path forward. Everybody else is down here making the same mistakes, making the same decisions. Truly stand out and be different. And guess what? You're going to fail, and that's okay. I've failed countless times. I've missed so many jump shots, metaphorically speaking, but that doesn't mean I stop shooting. So don't be afraid to stand in the face of adversity, to stand in the face of medical consensus, to stand in the face of everything that may seem normal to be abnormal, because abnormality is the way towards the future. And I mean, I saw this quote the other day. It's like, your lineage has been waiting generations for a person like you to wake up. So be that person. Stop that generational curse, that generational trauma. Be the person that puts their ego aside to say, no, I want my family from now on to live this way. And sometimes you got to be the one to pivot. And that is definitely an unpopular decision in most circles.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, look, bringing it back to the ancestors, that's so important and inspiring. So, thank you again, Chris, for being on Unpopular Decisions. Clearly, you've borne that out on so many different parts of your life. Of course, you're the founder of Overtime Solutions. They can find you on chriseverly.com. Anything else you want to make our audience aware of?
I'm available. Again, I don't do any of this. I didn't go through hell just to say I did. I went through hell and I brought a blueprint back to make it through life's toughest times. So, reach out to me with questions and support the pod. I mean, Jameelah, I love what you're doing here. It's going to
Thank
be
you.
obviously you and I talk about this behind the scenes, but on the way up, as some might say, so
Claim
definitely
it.
that's what I'm saying. Tap in with the pod, y'all. I mean, support each other. At the end of the day, that's all we have is each other. So don't hate on each other. We're all just trying to see each other win. There is obviously enough out here for everybody to eat. So support each other, support the visions, do good, invest in yourself, invest in your body, invest in your mind. And that's pretty much all I have to say. I mean, I'm not no sales pitch or anything, but if you find yourself relating with a lot of this stuff, come check me out. And I would love to help however I can. And I wouldn't be remiss. I gotta thank my parents. I gotta thank my girlfriend. I gotta thank all my friends who've been a part of this. Everybody that's been so instrumental in this journey. And yeah, just want to say thank you to all of them because it hasn't been easy on them whatsoever. And I wouldn't be at this stage and I wouldn't be where I'm headed without them and then connect with like-minded people like yourself.
Amazing. Yeah, it always takes a village.
Hmm. Indeed.
If today's conversation sparked something for you, don't ignore it. You're not doing life wrong, you're doing life courageously. Be sure to subscribe to Unpopular Decisions wherever you get your podcasts for more honest conversations about living your truth. And if something about this episode hit home, continue to support us by sharing it with someone who might get something out of it or write us a review. Because when one person chooses differently, it opens the door to a million more brave choices. Thank you for listening. I'm glad you're here.